Hey y'all, it's Alicia and welcome back to Alicia's Crafty Hop Hop. And true to my word, I am trying to pre-record some videos that you can watch while I embark on this medical journey. I can't promise that they're going to be regular, but I am doing my best. And today I wanted to tackle a very, I think, shush kind of topic that I'm not so sure why no one wants to talk about it. But I think especially for we makers, it's a really important topic. And I'm talking about the C word. And don't worry, I'm not losing my PG status on this channel. By the C word, it's really two words. I mean COVID clutter. Now, depending upon where you live in the world and what state you live in the US, you've either been at home now for 12 months, 18 months, some people 24 months, 22 months. Other people it's been less time because COVID spread around the world at different speeds, at different rates. Some countries had breaks, like Taiwan, where for months and months and months they were fine, and now they're having an outbreak. So it just depends where you were. But, you know, most of us that were in New York went a solid year. And certainly here in Florida, it depends on how you chose to live your life. So for myself, it's well over a year. And for me, at least anyway, and for friends that I've talked to, we are living with something that we call COVID clutter, and nobody really wants to talk about it. But basically what I'm referring to is the fact that maybe it's a combination of being home so much and everyone being home so much, which means the house gets messier and it gets harder to clean because it's so messy. And normally we spend a lot of our lives outside of the house. And yes, we sometimes have weekend lounge days, but we clean up after those. But it's different when you're home 24/7. And it's really different when the whole family is home 24/7. Well, you add art making to that and crafting to that, and it can unleash an unholy mess. Now, that's on its own. Then we can talk about the implications of COVID and how they affected some of us emotionally, which I think people don't want to talk about, especially not makers, because we're already inclined to save things to make for projects. But I actually think it's a really important subject to talk about. So I'll give you an example. You know, previous to COVID, if I had a hand towel for the bathroom and it got kind of ratty or run down, when we were kids, we would save them and cut them up for rags. But I tend to just donate them to the local pet shelter because they need them for the animals. But COVID did sort of something to me mentally, and I'm sure you can understand this. If you guys remember, I couldn't get groceries without Lanny. Thank goodness for you, Lanny. And, you know, there were a lot of things we couldn't get. Alcohol, PPE, and I think that sort of, I'm already frugal, but what it did was it sort of reinforced some things from my childhood. And probably amplified them so that, you know, that waste not, want not thing became too big a deal. So now if that ratty towel is there, even if I replace it, I'm not throwing it away. Now, why is that? If previous to COVID, I would have donated it to the shelter. Why is it occupying space in my closet? Well, you take that example and you can apply it right across the board in my house right now. I realize that, like, you know, normally every season I go through my clothes and I get rid of anything stained, stretched, anything needs to be replaced. Have I done that? No. Have I noticed that I need new t-shirts? Absolutely. And they're hard to find. So, but even if I found one or two, did I get rid of two like I normally would? No. No. Now let's apply that to making. So, y'all know I had limited energy since this sort of medical thing. And my last reorg, I mean, how many times have I reorged on here? 10 times? You know, every time it's a better system. The last system was the best system out of all the systems I've developed. But it required management. And when I developed this blood clot thing, I just had less time and energy to give to managing anything beyond the stuff I had to manage, like my health and making supper and doing the regular COVID cleaning and making sure our bathrooms were really clean and that sort of thing. So I just didn't have the energy. And then you add a service dog into that I have to train, and wow, my time just shrunk really fast. So I found over time, my making spaces just got messier and messier and messier. And I was so frustrated. Now, I always say this, I'm not going to pull it all out and do it because I know it takes me way too long. I say I'm going to do it one section at a time. But I think something must trigger in my head when I go to reorg, because I can't help it. I start pulling everything out. And the next thing I know, everywhere is a disaster. This time, that was really not a good idea, because I didn't have the energy or the time between all these medical appointments to work on it. So it has taken me a really long time. Now, I could have cheated. I could have just put things back and not dealt with it, and that would have been fast. Probably 2 days, I would have the whole thing done. But that's not what I wanted to do, because I started to realize this whole COVID clutter thing, and I started to look at my craft supplies, and I'm like, why am I managing supplies I'm not using? So that is really what I wanted to talk to you about today. It's not just COVID clutter. It's being honest with ourselves about what we like making, or what the writer Mitch Albom calls, what's your glory? What's the thing that makes you happy? Now, y'all know I don't like to make a Memdex. So why do I have a whole bin of Memdex making supplies? You know, why? Because once a year for someone's challenge, I might make one, and even then I don't like it. It doesn't make sense that I'm managing a whole bin of supplies for something I really don't enjoy making, and I maybe make once a year. So I reached out to a couple of people who've been crafting like 20 years. Because if, you know, this is me after 4 years, oh my goodness, like they must totally have an idea of how to manage this. And you know, their answers were really the same across the board. Basically, it was whatever doesn't give me joy. If it's in good shape, I give it away. If it's not, I throw it away. It's that simple. So then I asked one of these women about, what about Memdexes? Because I know even though this person doesn't like making Memdexes, she still does sometimes. And she said, I kept one die. That's it. And I was like, wow. So that made me start to really think about, what do you actually like making versus what do you own? And why are you holding on to the things you don't like to make? And there's a number of reasons. Part of it is luck. You know, it took me years to build this stash. And we've talked about this. Like when I first started, I could only make in one style because I could only afford to buy one kind of grouping. We all know how expensive buying craft supplies are and art supplies, right? So I slowly expanded over time, and I worked hard to do that at frugal prices. So like I chased orange sticker sales, right? And peachy cheap deals. So these were hard-won supplies so that I could make in every style. And it took me years to build this stash. So it's hard then to look at it and not be like, I don't want to give any of that up. I worked hard for that stuff. And I did work hard for that stuff. But there are some realities. Some of that stuff I haven't used in 2 years. And the odds are I'm not going to use it. I was just doing some sorting this morning, and I put something in the donation bin, and then I took it back out. And I felt like I was on a Hoarders episode. I'm serious. I was like, you just did what they tell you not to do. Why did I take it out? Well, because the thing that made me buy this thing, I'm still attracted to. So I still like the thing, but you know what? I'm not going to make with it. And I know that. Like I asked myself, are you going to make with it this week? Nope. You know why? Because I'm still working on the mixed media, and I'm also working on some garden party. So no, I'm not going to make with it this week. And then I'm like, you're going to make with it next week? Nope. And even if I wasn't having the surgery, would I make with it? Probably not. So why am I keeping it? Because it's cute? Okay, it's cute. But you know what? Somebody else will actually make with it. And isn't that better than me hoarding it? So I had a moment. It wasn't like a weepy moment. It was like, okay, so you have to resist buying cute things that you know you're not going to make with. And I think going through this process has been a little bit painful. Because, you know, my one concession before COVID was my nails. You all know that. And I hate the fact that I can't go get a manicure. That's where I'm girly girl, right? It's like that and my sunglasses. But I'm not overly cutesy. And so I have a lot of cutesy craft supplies. Now, some I like and I keep because I use them for bag toppers or if I'm making certain kinds of embellishments. But some of these things, I should just not own. I just shouldn't. Because, you know, when I use them for other people, like if it's a birthday or they're doing a challenge, other than that, I would never touch them. So probably I don't need to own them then. And I think that's the awareness I'm coming to. Now, I'm not telling you that's easy, folks. It's hard. Because again, you know, I how many times did I leave New York or here, 7 o'clock, running out to like a sale because finally something was affordable or greatly reduced? Or didn't I drive down to like almost Fort Lauderdale before before the Tuesday mornings closed because they were the only ones that had paper pads? I mean, I did some crazy stuff to get the stash. But if I haven't used it, and I'm honest with myself about the fact that I'm unlikely to use it, why am I spending energy organizing it, cleaning it, and managing it when I could just free up all that time? So I know this is a hard discussion to have, but I feel like we're not quite around the corner of COVID. COVID is still spreading. There are certain places greater affected than others around the world. There are certain states affected more. There are certain provinces in Canada affected more. But we are working towards a solution here. Parts of the Middle East, like Israel, already has herd immunity. So hopefully we'll get there one day. Let's hope more people will get vaccinated and we'll get to herd immunity. That would be amazing. But, okay, so let's say it even wasn't COVID. I probably needed to do this. But COVID really did increase the feeling of, what if I can't get these things again? And that's an unhealthy thing. You know, I need to throw away those t-shirts. I need to donate those hand towels. And I probably need to do this in every aspect of my life, not just the craft area, although that's a really good place to start. So I'm encouraging all of you to sort of ask yourself, I'm not suggesting you start it right away. It's a huge undertaking, I promise you. What I am suggesting you do is ask yourself, if you're holding on to stuff, you know, because COVID made us feel a bit panicky. You know, when we look at things like the Depression, or anyone who grew up with like extreme poverty or homelessness or tenaciousness, like having like maybe tenuous home life when they're younger, often respond like to wanting to hold on to stuff. And that's a natural reaction to that experience. And we all experienced that in COVID. Most of the population around the world did. So it's not that surprising that it's difficult to give things up after being without a lot of things for a long time. My favorite glue is still not being manufactured. Fabri-Tech's my second favorite glue. My favorite glue comes out of Michigan. They're still not operational, folks. I still don't have my foam glue for my shakers, which was the best, because, you know, I don't make good shakers with the tape, the foam bits. I just don't. I hate when the sequins get stuck. But that foam glue is amazing, but I can't get it because they're not yet open. So that creates, I guess, a feeling like, well, what if I can't get something? But I think if we want to liberate ourselves, not just make our lives easier for managing our supplies, not just making our day-to-day life easier, but also just in general, moving forward and maybe a little bit out of the COVID mentality, then maybe we have to embrace having some faith. And plus, is it so terrible that I don't have foam glue? Well, I don't make so many shakers without it. That's the sad thing. But the world's not a worse place because I'm not making shakers, right? And I could make tool shakers instead. So I'm just encouraging all of you to think about this. And if you feel like maybe this is something that would improve your life, take the Clear the COVID Clutter Challenge. It's kind of uplifting once you get over that terrible initial feeling, I promise you. All right, y'all. Wishing for you a happy, a healthy, a creative, and maybe even a clutter-free day. All right, y'all. Take real good care. Bye for now.